Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to walk through you to as to how to set up and install MySQL Server to our computers or to our machine in Windows. And yeah, so we're gonna be installing Xampp SQL Server. So but before that, let me discuss to you the what are these SQL commands that we are going to use later on. So when we talk about or when we say SQL or SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's actually a language that is a database language or the database scripts that's actually designed for storing a database, storing records to a database, creating a table, creating relationship to other tables, removing records from a database, uh, searching values or records from a database, deleting, and even extracting data from a database. In a way, we would like to present or show off and certain information to our users. Example, we would like to, let's say in a grocery, we want to access the details about a certain product. So using its barcode or probably its product ID, we want to show the other details about that certain product. So like for an instance, its description, its brand, its price, and other things, other information about the products. Another example is, let's say we want to access our records in our grades, our student, let's say students accounts information in a school. So by using the student's ID, you are able to access the your student's information or your information like your name, your address, your gender, and your course. Of course, you can also access the grades, okay, as long as it is stored to a database. So when we talk again, when we say SQL, it's the standard language for database management. Meaning to say, there are actually a lot of relational database management systems available for us to use, such as MySQL. So we have also MS Access that is under Microsoft Corporation. We have also Oracle, that's under Oracle Corporation. We have Cbase, we have Postgres and SQL Server this again, this can be used for this can be used for the I mean they are actually the goal is the same. Uh, they might have or they might differ in a certain syntax, but the goal is the same: to manage our data, to organize our data, and most importantly, to for us to be able to access records from our database. Okay, so as you can see here in the figure, we have few categories of SQL statements or SQL commands. So we have here data definition language, that's DDL, and then that we have also here data control language. We also have data manipulation language, transaction control language, and data query language. Now let's talk about data definition language. When we when we say data definition language or DDL, this SQL statement or commands are actually it helps us to define database structures or schema. So let's say for an instance, we want to create a table of 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 this database, and we can even create a database out of this SQL command. And we can also we can actually uh, we can actually use this SQL commands to create relationship between between each table in our database, because if we talk about relational database management system, this composed of different tables inside I mean it is composed of different tables which are actually logically related with each other. Example, if you are going to use students information systems, so tables related for the students, or could be like student could be one of a table, one of the tables rather. So it could have a course table. You could have student account tables. You could have subject, or you could have um, payment table, and other things related to students can be a table. Okay, so basically, we sometimes we can omit parang yeah, we can omit studying or giving uh, a focus on the data definition language. It's because most of the servers are actually going to allow us to actually create a table or even create a database uh, using drag and drop methods. But there are certain, of course, there are certain, if you would like to know better, like how to really construct a database as well as to create relationships, this data definition language are actually of most important, especially if you're into computer science if you're into computer science and IT, like IT related courses, you must know how to, you know, do or write SQL scripts from scratch. So we have here create. So create is used for defining a database structure, okay, a database structure schema. So you can create a table, you can create a database with a certain columns or fields, okay, and then we're gonna be, I'm going to demonstrate later some of this on how to actually create a database. And then we can also drop a database or drop a table. So when we talk about drop, it's actually it's used for removing tables from our database. And then another is alter. So alter means you can change or modify the structure of your database. You can even change the column name or even the variable of your column or variable of that fields. You can even change its data type. Okay, and then we have uh, last one, we have trunket. So when we say trunket, this is a command that is used to delete all the rows. Okay, all the rows of your all the rows from your database. So by just calling a trunket script, you can remove you can actually remove all the records from your database. Okay. Now for data manipulation language, this SQL commands are used to manage and manipulate our records. So we can insert records to it, we can modify our records, and we can even delete our records. So there are actually four basic SQL commands under this. We have insert, update, and delete. However, the delete and select. However, the select is actually under data query language, but we can actually that SQL script, which is select, is actually under uh, this statement. But primarily, there are three only. We have insert, update, and delete. So by the definition or by the word itself, it serves its purpose. When we talk about insert, you can actually store or insert records to your database. When we talk about update, you can modify or change records from your database. Then delete means you can remove records from your database, right? So for this, we're gonna be focusing on the DDL and DML. Now let's proceed with another uh, another SQL commands or group of SQL commands, which is data control language. So data control language has grant and revoke SQL scripts. So this data control language are actually used for giving rights and permissions to our users. So when we talk about grant, grant means we use to give user access privileges to our database. So we, let's say for an instance, we want to grant this certain user to access the account of depositors in a bank. Okay, because there are others that are not allowed to access our balances. Okay, Another is most likely for this. These are for admin purposes. And then for revoke, it is actually antonym of grant, meaning you are going to take out the permission, or yeah, take out the permission from that user, meaning to say you can that user is no longer allowed to access that data or that certain information inside of our database. Okay. So next is we have transaction control language. When we talk about transaction control language, these are used for dealing with transactions within our database, or shall we say this, because when you talk about transactions or TCL, I mean in the database, we since we use these commands to actually process and manage our data, so eventually there's most likely we are going to write series of SQL commands. So you might like inserting, at the same time changing some records, and at the same time deleting some records or even accessing other records. So having that group of commands together in one action is what we call a transaction. So once, let's say for an instance, in a bank, so you probably let's say in a ATM kiosk, so you probably checked your balance. At the same time, while checking your balance, you are asked to perform another transaction, and let's say you actually withdraw uh, like cash from that from of the same account, and then that's actually a transaction. If in any case there would be like there would be problems with the server, and say there would be problems in the server. So most probably, if that transaction is not going to be like it's not successful, then there's this the our program or application should have a commit and rollback transaction, in which when it is it means if it's committed, it means it's the transaction is successful. So there are instances upon withdrawal, and the money is actually to not being dispensed by your ATM, by that ATM. So you'll have to like wait for 24 hours to so to parang rollback, no, of that transaction. So meaning to say, your that transaction is not committed. So that's actually the difference between commit and rollback. So commit is it is used to save all the transactions to the database. While rollback, it's the commands to it's actually a command to undo, all the transactions that are not successful, or that are not actually it's not yet final, because there's in the middle of the transaction there's issues and problems. So that is why it has to be rolled back. Okay, so that's why commit and rollback SQL statements are actually, shall we say, married to each other. Okay, so yeah, that's it. No, for commit and rollback. For the next SQL command, we have here save point. So this save point is it helps us as a programmer to actually set a save point within a transaction. Okay, or yeah, that's save point. And then DQL, or data query language, it is used to fetch data from our database. So most the ang pinakaano nila is select statement. But before, select statement is actually part of data manipulation lang. But just yeah, in the newer ones, it's actually under data query language, because you're not going to manipulate the records. You're not going to change the record, but you're just accessing the record. Okay, probably by searching or by extracting a certain database, a certain records from a database. So that would be all for the SQL commands. Now, this time we're gonna be we're gonna be installing our for this we'll have to go to our to go to any of your browser installed. You just have to type Xampp. So, yan. So Xampp is actually a cross-platform application that is used for, it's a server basically for, it stands for, um, X stands for cross-platform. This one is for Apache, and then it's MySQL M for M, and then PHP and Perl. Okay, so we're gonna be installing this one. So by clicking the download button, so we are now redirected to our to here, no, to this website. So you can actually choose any of the platforms here. So let's say for an instance, if you're using Windows, you can actually install any of these versions. We have here for Linux and we have um, for Mac OS. And then, so since I have here a Windows, so yeah, so we're gonna be installing a Xampp using this one. So to do that, let's download this one. Okay. So let's download the latest one. Okay, just wait for a while. So it's being downloaded here. Okay, so let's just wait for this one to be uh, finished downloading. And after that, we're gonna be installing that.